So student, today we will start a new chapter, esophagus. Okay, esophagus is a tubular structure. It has about 25 centimeter long. It begins at upper esophageal sphincter, that is cricopharynx, and ends at cardia, where it joins the stomach. Okay. Esophagus, the pharyngeal part of esophagus is derived from pharynx, whereas the caudal or distal part is derived from the foregut, gastric part of the foregut. Okay, this tube, as I said, is 25 centimeter long. It allows the passage of the bolus of the food into the stomach. Basically, the layers are the same: mucosa, submucosa, muscular layer. Here the muscular layer, you see skeletal muscle in the upper two-third. In some part there is transitional, where it has both skeletal and smooth muscle, whereas in very lower part it has a smooth muscle. Epithelial lining is squamous epithelium throughout, except at the GE junction where it changes into columnar epithelium. Okay, the arterial supply of esophagus varies with the where it is situated. As in cervical esophagus, the arteries supplying will be inferior thyroid artery, branches from the inferior thyroid artery, which comes from thyrocervical trunk. Okay, and lower down in the mediastinum, it will be supplied by the branches from bronchial artery, and sometimes directly from the aorta, branches coming to the esophagus. And in the lower esophagus, it will be from the inferior phrenic artery and branches from the left gastric artery. Okay. The venous drainage of esophagus will be similar to the arterial drainage. Upper part, it will go into through the inferior thyroid vein into brachiocephalic vein, and in the middle part, mediastinal part, mostly nasizygous vein, hemizygous vein. Lower part, left gastric vein, and lower part is a part of portosystemic communication, because above it is going into zygous and hemizygous, that is a systemic, and below it is going into the left gastric. So this is a junction of portosystemic communication. So whenever there is portal hypertension, the esophageal varices occur at this part also. The lymphatic drainage of esophagus is also along the arterial and venous drainage. The upper esophagus will drain mainly into the paratracheal lymph nodes. Paratracheal lymph nodes. In the middle part, the lymphatics basically go into the thoracic duct. Some directly into thoracic duct, some along the nodes, and then into the thoracic duct. In the lower part, nodes lymphatic can go into the left gastric and celiac nodes as well. Okay. So in upper esophagus, lymphatics go up. In the middle, it can go a little bit up and down both. In the lower, goes down to the left gastric and then to the celiac nodes. So this is about anatomy, physiology. Then the passage of food is primarily because of the peristaltic waves. The primary peristalsis, which occurs after the swallowing is initiated. Before the swallowing, some waves are there also, that is secondary peristalsis. Okay, and some peristaltic tertiary waves are also there. Okay, the nerve supply to esophagus, the parasympathetic nerve supply comes from vagus, isn't it? Vagus gives the parasympathetic supply, whereas sympathetic supply comes from cervical and thoracic ganglions. Okay. So, what are the symptoms which a patient can complain to you if he has got an esophageal problem? They usually complain of sometimes what we call dysphagia. Okay, so patient is not able to swallow, and patient not able to swallow. You see, there are two types. One, when patient cannot initiate the swallowing process, there is the inhibition in the voluntary process where the swallowing is initiated. In that case, the food will be there in the mouth and it can sometimes go into the respiratory passages and patient will have cough and all. Okay, this type of dysphagia is usually caused by chronic neurological problem or chronic muscular problem. Okay, whereas esophageal dysphagia is basically the patient will say that swallowing they can initiate, but food seems to stick somewhere. In the mediastinum on the chest, the patient will point. Food seems to stick. A sticking sign is there. So this is basically esophageal dysphagia. Okay. Patient also complains sometimes of odynophagia, that is pain during swallowing. Pain during swallowing occurs in esophagitis. Mild discomfort and pain can occur in esophagitis because of regurgitation and all. Severe pain can occur when esophagus is severely damaged, as in chemical burn or corrosive injury. Okay. Then we have regurgitation and reflux. What is regurgitation? You see, regurgitation occurs when there is some functional or mechanical obstruction in the esophagus. This obstruction leads to food coming up into the mouth. Okay. Whereas reflux is basically the gastroduodenal content, food in the and the liquid in the stomach and duodenum, the gastroduodenal content, they go into the esophagus and into the mouth. And this is called reflux, and this can also go into the airways and air passage, trachea and larynx, and can cause cough, dyspnea, even pneumonitis, sore throat and all. So reflux can lead to all these symptoms. Okay. So these are mostly the symptoms of esophageal problem. How do we investigate esophageal diseases? Basically, investigation can be simple X-ray where a barium swallow is done. Barium sulfate paste is patient ingest and then X-rays are taken, and then you can see whether there is a smooth filling or there is filling defect, tapering where there is smooth tapering or rat tail tapering, irregular tapering, which can suggest malignancy. Okay, but these days what we do is CT scan with oral contrast. Contrast enhanced CT is better to show you any esophageal malignancy. That is the investigation of choice we do. Another investigation you can do is upper GI endoscopy with a flexible endoscope which has a light source and a camera at the tip, and it gives beautiful images. Whole esophagus can be seen right up to the duodenum, stomach and duodenum as well, and it will show you reflux. It will also show you any changes in esophagus epithelium. You can see esophagus from inside. So there is a rigid esophagoscope also available, but mostly we use flexible esophagoscopy, which is a part of esophagogastroduodenoscopy. Then you have endoscopic ultrasound. The same flexible endoscopy, at the tip of it we have high resolution ultrasonic transducer. Ultrasonic transducer is incorporated into the tip of the endoscope, and with the help of that we can see the wall of the esophagus, mucosa, submucosa, muscular layer, and in the proximity of esophagus, the structures in the proximity of esophagus can be seen. So this high resolution transducers, this is called endoscopic ultrasound. So you can do a barium swallow, you can do CECT, you can do a flexible endoscopy, rigid endoscopy, and endoscopic ultrasound. These are basic investigations we do, and for reflux sometimes we do 24-hour pH monitoring of the esophagus. We do esophageal manometry. Okay, esophageal manometry is done with these days with electronic transducers are there, which are placed into the esophagus, and it is connected with a computer, and this and in the belt basically. So this gives the pressure readings in the lower part of the esophagus. Okay, you see the lower part of the esophagus is basically a high pressure zone. Okay, it prevents normally the reflux from the stomach into the esophagus. Okay, so that transducer is placed about 4 centimeter above the GE junction, and we can monitor the pressure there. This is called esophageal manometry. And also 24-hour pH ambulatory pH monitoring can be done. Here also a pH probe is placed through the mouth or nose at about 5 centimeter above the GE junction, and this will monitor the pH of the content. Sometimes when the reflux occurs, then you will see that will record the pH. That is, recorder is there in the belt, and that is then analyzed by the computer. So if pH is less than 4 for more than 4 minutes or 5 minutes, that is taken as positive, that yes, regurgitation is occurring. So you can monitor the esophageal pressure, but to see whether the lower esophagus has high pressure or not, if the pressure has decreased and promoting reflux. You can also see 24-hour pH monitoring you can do with the help of the probe, and see whether acid is refluxing into the lower esophagus or not with the help of the pH. So these are the ways by which you investigate the esophageal pathology. Okay, next time we will discuss about corrosive injury and reflux. Thank you.